A huge round of applause for these incredible women. They are, of course, the Darlington nurses who went to a tribunal over a policy that allowed their transgender colleague, Rose Henderson, a biological male, to use a female changing room. Although, in what world where they'd have to stand in this day and age, would they have to do that? It really seems quite obvious, all of this. Now, Rose has been using the facility since 2019 as a student nurse. The complaints only began in 2023. Now, I suspect that before then, no one said anything sooner for fear of being ostracised or for fear of losing their job. In an interview with Martin Daubney, two of the nurses involved, Lisa Lockie and also Karen Hansen, said this.
Well, yeah, it's been ongoing for a good 2.5 years now, since we started out, and it eventually led to the point where we came to the tribunal in November, and then finally today we've had that ruling, which has ruled that the trust did discriminate against us. So we're really happy about that.
Now, Rose Henderson had said that the nurses were guilty of direct discrimination and harassment that has created an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating and offensive environment due to my protected characteristics. So the fact that Rose is transgender, this is the protected characteristics, but then what about the women's protected characteristics?
The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex.
Exactly. The nurses' claim included allegations that Rose Henderson had harassed colleagues inside the changing room. Now, one of the nurses, Karen Hansen, claimed that Rose Henderson repeatedly asked her whether or not she was getting changed yet and said this triggered a panic attack due to prior trauma. Now, Rose denied the allegations and the tribunal rejected the claim. The case closed with the Employment Tribunal findings that the nurses from Darlington Memorial Hospital suffered harassment from their NHS trust, with the effect of violating the dignity of the claimants and creating a hostile, intimidating, humiliating and degrading environment for them. Wow. How do we get to this, where women are intimidated by their employer for expecting a duty of care that their female-only spaces are respected and preserved? It is done for the safety of women. Now, that is not to say that Rose did anything wrong or that Rose was a threat. But let's take the case of a trans man, so a biological woman who was allegedly repeatedly raped at a psychiatric hospital by men in a male environment. Protecting female-only spaces is nothing personal to Rose or any other biological male. But, surprise, surprise, women don't want men in their female-only changing spaces. And given the Supreme Court ruling, I don't get why some organisations are still dragging their heels on this one.
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just living credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, You need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponise against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward. And that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
Right, let's get the view of human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell. Peter Tatchell, welcome to the programme. We always have a ding-dong on this issue, but I'm just wondering, if this was the right decision, was it not?
The NHS Trust did not treat those nurses well. They should have, from the get-go, organised a meeting between the nurses and the trans nurse, Rose Henderson, where they could sit down together and discuss their concerns. I don't, as far as I know, believe that happened. It should have happened right from the outset. Having said that, as you say, the tribunal found that Rose Henderson did not behave inappropriately. She did nothing wrong. She wasn't guilty of any kind of bad behaviour towards those nurses. And I've got to say that of the trans women that I know, and I know a lot, they have for years passed without being even noticed because they look like women, they act like women, they behave like women, they make no threats, nothing inappropriate about their behaviour. They go out of their way to treat non-trans women with the utmost respect. So I do think we're making a bit of a storm in a teacup because the number of trans people who behave badly is very tiny. Well, those who do behave badly are obviously wrong, and I condemn that. But we don't condemn the whole Muslim community because a small number support or act in ways of terrorism. That's a tiny, unrepresented minority. We don't say we don't say therefore that all Muslim women should be subject to restrictions based on the bad behaviour of a tiny minority.
No. I don't think that's an equal parallel at all. That's not an equal parallel. We're talking about female-only spaces and male-only spaces. We're not talking about a religion or anything like that. And the reason why those spaces are that way is for the few who may behave in a disrespectful manner. So I don't see the problem as to why, if, as you say, your respectful trans friends would mind going into a separate, different space to women. If they respect women and women aren't comfortable with it, then what would be the problem?
Well, just want to reiterate, the principle is we don't treat whole communities with restrictions based on the bad behaviour of minorities. That should apply to everyone.
No, we do sometimes. No. Just because you do it in one situation doesn't mean you shouldn't do it in another. Okay. No, that shouldn't apply. Because we know, let's talk about the murder rates and things like that. We know that the majority of murders are committed by men and the majority of women who are murdered by men. Now, that's not to say that everyone is a murderer, but we set laws and rules in place because of the minority. So that's how it kind of works. We look at that in terms of crime and all those kind of things to protect individuals. That's what happens with that. And we use our common sense in these issues as well. And for women, if women don't feel comfortable, and these nurses clearly didn't feel comfortable with Rose Henderson in their female-only space, then if, as you say, your trans friend is so respectable, what would be the problem for Rose Henderson to go into, say, a different space?
Well, I can just reframe it slightly.
OK.
I think in the case of trans women who've undergone full gender reassignment and have no male genitalia, it is perfectly reasonable that they should be able to share women's only spaces.
Why?
Because
they're still biological males, just because... Why?
They're only biological in terms of their chromosomes.
Well, that's what being a woman is. Peter, there's no other way of being a woman than by biologically being a woman.
But hang on. Possessing certain chromosomes doesn't make you a threat or a danger.
Well, no, but it makes you a woman or a man. So there's no way around it. There really is no way around it. I don't see what the problem is. If I was trans and I wanted to use a space, I wouldn't be... just say I was a trans man and I wanted to use a space, I would have no problem with men not wanting me to be in their space. I could use a third space, and actually, as a trans man, it'd probably be safer for me, because there was a little story that happened about 3 days ago in the paper where a trans man, so a biological female, was raped by, this is the allegation, was allegedly raped by men at a psychiatric hospital on a male ward. So this is these things are put in place to protect women from stronger men. Men are generally stronger than women, so that is why. And if you look at the murder rates and things like that, and the attacks and things like that, it is usually often male against. If it's a male against female, it is quite serious, and that's the only reason.
I agree.
Nothing to do with someone being, we're being horrible about you. It's because of that. Safety of women.
I agree. Male violence against women, physical and sexual, is a huge problem. But we don't, therefore, penalise all men.
They're not being penalised.
No, you don't penalise all men. You don't restrict all men. You punish the perpetrators, not men in general.
Yeah, but why is it seen as a punishment for a man who believes they're a woman to be put in another space? That's not a punishment. It's protecting the women from a potential of that particular thing being manipulated and used by men who are bad. Why should the door be open to that?
Yeah, well, as soon as there is any evidence of bad behaviour,
lots of evidence
they should be
of that.
prosecuted.
Yes, but why should the women take the risk? Why should a woman be attacked by somebody who's pretending or, to be a woman and going to that space and attacking a woman because the woman has opened the space for them, and then you say, this only happens a few times?
Well, that's a very important point. If the numbers are so small, and they are, that does not justify a generalised restriction on all trans women.
Perhaps they would be bigger if it were different. Perhaps the numbers would be huge if it were different. No, Peter, you are wrong on this.
Okay.
It is fine. Even there's a Supreme Court ruling that tells you so as well. I have no problem with anybody, whatever they want to be, that's fine. But when it comes to biology, a man can never become a woman and a woman can never be a man, and you know that.
Well, I agree that biological sex in terms of chromosomes is immutable.
Yes, which is the only way.
But everything else can be modified by surgery, by hormones and so on.
Not really.
And to all intents and purposes, women who've undergone full gender reassignment, they are indistinguishable from other women in terms of everything. But
what would be the problem with somebody like that using a third space? Why would they have to use the women's space? I just don't get what the problem is. What's the problem?
Well, the problem might be because then it would put responsibility on all kinds of authorities to create new specialised...
But there are third spaces. There's always in building regulations, they always have to have a disabled or one toilet that can be used by anyone. So I don't see what the problem is. Like if I was trans, I would have no problem using that space if it meant that I would be safer from biological males, because if I was a trans person, I'd then be a trans male. That would be wise for me to be in that space for my own safety as a woman. I would know that's wise. And as a man, if I was, purporting to be a woman, I would know that for the safety of women, I would use that other space, because by opening that gap, you allow others to take advantage, and they may not be as respectful as people like Rose Henderson.
Yeah, well, exactly. And this is why I'm concerned that a generalised restriction on all trans women because of a hypothetical possible threat or danger...
It's not a hypothetical threat.
...is not the right way to make law.
No, there have been
We don't
threats.
make law based... some people drive their cars recklessly and cause terrible accidents and kill people. We don't, therefore, place a generalised restriction on all car drivers.
We do. We put laws in place for all car drivers to follow the law, and if you break the law, then you will suffer the consequences. The bottom line is, Peter, for the safety of women,
you suffer the consequences when you do the bad act.
Yeah, but let's just use the actual case rather than all these so-called hypotheticals. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Can I just say, in terms of, let's just look at the Equality and Human Rights Guidance.
Yeah.
It says that women should and can be challenged if they use a single-sex space based on their look alone. Now, that is very dangerous, because I have non-trans women who do not look very feminine, and already 2 of them have been challenged in a very humiliating, distressing way when using a female toilet.
Why don't they just use the third space? It's a lot easier. I don't see the problem.
But don't penalise women who don't conform to feminine ideals.
OK, Peter Tatchell, I have to go, because in my ear they're saying go, go, go. Such a pleasure as ever. Peter Tatchell, really good to talk to you.